What was this conversation like?
It was really fascinating because prior to this interview, we had done dozens and dozens of interviews with people very close to Masa, and everything we kept on hearing from his deputies was, this man has so much conviction, he's bolder than anybody else I know. And speaking to him, you really get that sense. What's really interesting is that initially, when he was coming up with the idea of this fund, he had thought 30 billion. But then on the plane over, right before they were going to pitch to one of their potential LPs, he changed that 30 to 100 billion. And when I asked him about this, he said, well, 100 is a simpler number, and we need that much capital every 2 to 3 years to keep up the momentum.
That said, he hasn't hit the target yet. And how does he plan to do this every couple of years?
He hasn't hit the target yet. They're very close to closing. They're almost at $100 billion. They've had a very vast array of these Middle Eastern wealth funds. They've had very established companies invest, and he believes that with the IRR, the internal rate of return that he's able to achieve, these investors are going to want to continue to deploy their capital. But he really doesn't see his fund as a traditional venture fund. He truly believes that through his investments, he's accelerating the next revolution of artificial intelligence, which he believes is similar to the revolution that happened 20 years ago with the internet.
That said, you've got venture capital firms, traditional venture capital firms breaking up, in part because of the new competition. Kleiner Perkins is splitting the growth fund off from the rest of the fund. You've also got other funds like Sequoia trying to keep up. And we've interviewed plenty of venture capitalists on the show who say, the landscape has completely changed. There's so much money out there. What does he have to say about some of the criticism?
He's pretty unruffled by the criticism. He says, VCs can say whatever they want to say. I have total respect for them, but I'm trying to do something different. But you're absolutely right. I mean, when you speak to venture capitalists on background, they are not shy at all about complaining about SoftBank. Some of them call them a bully, that they're just stuffing wads of cash into entrepreneurs. They complain that they're raising valuations. I mean, this isn't the first time that venture capitalists have had to deal with an influx of money at the later stages. They've had hedge funds, mutual funds, foreign money, but the sheer size and scale of what SoftBank doing is rather frightening to a lot of them.
You also wonder, is it good net for the technological revolution to be driven by one person or one fund with one set of views?
Absolutely. I mean, this fund is only a year old, and they've already deployed $65 billion of capital, and he's hired these 9 managing partners under him, and I know he wants to increase that number, but for now there are only 9, and it's worth mentioning that they are all men. They say that they're trying to find women to add to it, but yes, it is all men. They have not traditional technology or venture capital backgrounds. A lot of them are actually made their name in the banking world. Rajiv Misra, who leads the fund, he made his name at Deutsche, at UBS. He met Masa a decade ago. He helped restructure the Sprint deal. So it really has yet to be seen what the final outcome of this is going to be.
What about the succession plans? He had Nikesh Arora, who was supposed to succeed him, and then it sounded like he changed his mind.
Yes.
And who is in position to succeed him, if anyone?
We certainly spent some time pressing him on this very point. We mentioned you're good friends with Jack Ma. He's made the decision to retire a little bit early. And his response was, hey, I'm great friends with Jack Ma. We still meet up every month. We talk about life, about business, and he's got his own style and I have my own style. So he says he wants to stay until he's 69 years old. And at that time, he used the metaphor passing the baton. And he says when he passes the baton, they're both going to be accelerating and it's going to be so seamless, you won't even notice the race has stopped.
So that's how many more years?
So he's 61 right now, so he has several more years. He says he hasn't chosen a successor, but he does say that even when he retires, he's still going to be chairman of the board, so he's not going anywhere. He's going to have his hands full for a very long time.
How are investors here in Silicon Valley going to adapt to this? I mean, how much will this just change the territory that startups and investors are operating in?
You know, for a long time, it was like Sand Hill Road is where all great startups go, and now, you know, they're not the only option. Now all roads eventually lead to SoftBank. They're not getting in, you know, Series A, C deals, but they are, if there's any company that's looking to raise in the billions, hundreds of millions of dollars of range, they all need to look at SoftBank. And as you mentioned before, funds like Sequoia, many established venture funds, they're having to raise bigger and bigger wads of money to be able to compete and to be able to continue to have an equity stake in their company as they get larger and larger.